David, you look amazing.
What a suit! Well,
Welcome, David. The church is proud.
Please, sir, a moment of your kindness.
I cannot stop now.
Just a little help, I beg you.
I am sorry.
Sometimes God sends help in unexpected forms. Let faith guide us.
Indeed. Come. Huh? Who's calling? It won't stop ringing. I should answer this.
David, the market is crashing. It's all collapsing. No, not now. I can't handle this.
David, breathe. We're with you.
It's all falling apart. My world is breaking. I can't take it anymore.
David Mensah was one of the most respected businessmen in the city. At 48, he lived a life many people only dreamed of. He owned construction companies spread across multiple districts, luxury homes in gated estates, expensive cars that moved silently through the streets like authority itself, and investment portfolios that grew even while he slept. When people spoke his name, it carried weight. When he entered a room, conversations adjusted themselves around him. Every Sunday morning, David appeared at church in perfectly tailored suits, polished shoes, and watches that reflected light like small declarations of success. He shook hands, smiled at the pastor, greeted elders with practiced warmth. From a distance, he looked like a man who had mastered both wealth and faith. But success has a way of slowly reshaping a person without permission. Over the years, something inside David had shifted. It did not happen suddenly. It came quietly, like a door slowly closing in a room no one notices until the light is gone. He stopped seeing people who could not benefit him. He stopped hearing voices that did not matter to his business. And without realizing it, he began to believe that poverty was a personal failure rather than a condition of life. By the time anyone noticed, David had already become someone else. That Sunday morning began like any other. The church parking lot shimmered with expensive vehicles. Men in suits stood in small groups discussing contracts, politics, investments. Women in elegant dresses exchanged polite laughter. Everything felt carefully arranged, like success had its own uniform. David stepped out of his car and adjusted his cufflinks. A few people greeted him warmly. He nodded with quiet confidence, already thinking ahead to the day's meetings. That was when he saw him. An old beggar sat near the church gate. His body was thin, almost folded into itself by age and hardship. His clothes were worn beyond repair, patched in places that no longer held meaning. His hands trembled slightly as he held a small bowl. His eyes carried the kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. As David walked past, the man lifted his head. "Please, sir," he said softly, "I haven't eaten since yesterday." David didn't stop. He barely even looked at him. His expression tightened slightly, not out of anger, but discomfort, as if poverty itself was an inconvenience he didn't want to carry into his morning. He continued walking. The beggar tried again, voice weaker this time. "God bless you, sir." David gave no response at all. Behind him, a few church members saw the moment unfold. Some looked away, others shifted awkwardly. No one intervened. In that silence, something small but important died. The beggar lowered his head again, accepting invisibility like he had done so many times before. Inside the church, David sat in the front row as usual. The service began with songs of worship, the choir filling the hall with emotional harmonies that made some people close their eyes. The pastor spoke about kindness, humility, and compassion. David listened politely, though his mind drifted between business deals and upcoming investments. Then the pastor read a verse that lingered longer than expected. "What you do for the least among you, you do for God." For a brief moment, David remembered the beggar at the gate. The image flickered in his mind like an unwanted reflection, but just as quickly as it came, he pushed it away. After the service ended, people gathered outside greeting one another. David walked toward his car. And there he was again. The same beggar. Still sitting in the same place, as if time had passed through everyone except him. This time their eyes met directly. The old man's gaze was different now, not pleading, not desperate, just calm, deeply calm, almost as if he understood something David did not. Then he spoke again. Sometimes God sends help in unexpected forms. David paused slightly. What does that even mean? He asked, irritated by the vagueness. The old man smiled faintly. You'll understand. David shook his head and left. He did not think about the encounter after he got into his car. He had meetings to attend, calls to make, decisions that affected millions. In his world, moments like that were insignificant. Or so he believed. By midday, the first call came. His financial director sounded unsettled. Sir, there's a problem. David frowned immediately. What kind of problem? The government has frozen several company accounts linked to one of our major partners. There are allegations of fraud and money laundering. David straightened in his chair. That has nothing to do with me, he said quickly. Sir, your companies are connected through joint investments. A silence followed. Then another call came, and another. Within hours, everything began to collapse at once. Banks suspended transactions, investors pulled out, contracts were paused pending investigation, news outlets picked up the story like blood in water. By evening, David's empire was shaking violently. He rushed to emergency meetings, lawyers filled conference rooms, phones rang endlessly, faces that once smiled at him now avoided eye contact. For the first time in years, David felt something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. By the next morning, the situation had worsened. Major clients had cancelled agreements, government agencies demanded explanations, accounts remained frozen, projects worth millions were halted indefinitely. And the worst part was this: David had done nothing directly illegal, but his name was now attached to someone else's crimes. In business, association is often enough. By nightfall, he sat alone in his mansion. The house was too quiet, too large, too empty. The same rooms that once made him feel powerful now felt like reminders of how quickly stability could vanish. His phone lay on the table, silent for the first time in years. That was when the memory returned. What you do for the least among you. And then the beggar's voice. Sometimes God sends help in unexpected forms. David stood up suddenly, restless. Something inside him refused to stay still. The following Sunday, he returned to church earlier than usual. He scanned the gate immediately. The beggar was not there. He walked around the premises, asking casually if anyone knew the man who usually sat outside. No one did. Some said he came and went. Others said they never paid attention. It was as if the man had never existed. David returned the next Sunday. Still nothing. And the Sunday after that. Weeks passed. His business situation stabilized slightly, but his reputation was damaged. People no longer spoke his name with the same admiration. There was caution now, distance. And still he kept searching. Until one rainy afternoon. Near a quiet road not far from the church, David saw him again. Sitting under a tree. Same frail frame, same worn clothes, same quiet presence. David stopped the car abruptly and stepped out. Hey, he called. The old man looked up slowly, as if he had been expecting him all along. David approached slower now. Who are you? David asked. The man smiled gently. Someone you finally decided to see. David exhaled sharply. My companies are falling apart, my life is collapsing, and somehow I keep thinking about what you said. The old man nodded. Because truth doesn't leave when ignored, it waits. David frowned. What do you want from me? Nothing, the old man said simply. That answer unsettled him more than any demand could have. David sat down beside him, despite the dirt, despite the discomfort, despite everything he had been trained to avoid. For a long time neither spoke. Then the old man said quietly, When life was good you walked past me without seeing me, not because you were cruel, but because you were full. David lowered his head. That morning I wasn't thinking, he muttered. No, the old man replied. You were thinking too much of yourself. Silence stretched again. Then the old man continued. You believed success was proof of superiority, but success is only a test of character, not a certificate of worth. David swallowed hard. For the first time in years, he did not have a reply. The rain began to fall gently, but neither of them moved. I lost everything in a few days, David said quietly. The old man nodded. You didn't lose it in a few days, you just discovered the cracks that were already there. David looked at him. Why are you speaking to me like this? The old man finally turned fully toward him. Because I was once like you. That sentence landed differently. I had wealth, he continued. Power, respect. I ignored people I thought were beneath me. Then life removed everything I used to measure myself by, and I learned something painful. David waited. That dignity is not in what you own. It is in how you treat people when you have everything. The words settled heavily between them. David looked down at his hands. For the first time, he didn't see a businessman. He saw a man who had walked past suffering without noticing. Days turned into weeks after that meeting. David's situation didn't magically fix itself. He still had losses, he still had legal battles, but something inside him began to shift. He started visiting shelters quietly, not to be seen, not to be praised, just to sit and listen. At first it felt unfamiliar, then uncomfortable, then strangely necessary. He began funding small community programs without attaching his name. He helped families he would never meet again. He stopped asking what people could do for him and started asking what they needed. Slowly, something softened inside him that had been hardened for years. But he never saw the old man again. Months later, when David asked around, no one knew where he had gone. Some said he moved, others said he disappeared completely. There was no record, no name, no trace that could confirm he was ever there at all. Only memory remained. Years passed. David rebuilt what he could, not to its former size but to something steadier, something quieter. He was no longer the loud symbol of wealth he once was. He became something else entirely. A man people respected for different reasons. At a charity gathering one evening, someone asked him a question during a discussion. What was the turning point of your life? David paused for a long moment. Then he answered honestly. The day I ignored a hungry man outside a church. The room went quiet. He continued, I thought success made me important, but I learned that success means nothing if it makes you stop seeing people. He looked down briefly, then added softly, sometimes the people we overlook are the ones sent to wake us up. No one interrupted, and David didn't speak again for a while. But in his mind, he was no longer in that room. He was back at the church gate, standing in front of a man he once refused to see, and understanding, finally, that nothing in his life had ever changed him more than that moment.